Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Joel 2 in Love, here bringing you with another episode of Sports Overview Topics. Thankfully, all the football went on as scheduled. Obviously, we had the Bills and the Chiefs flex from Thursday to Monday. Yesterday still was a good week of sports. We had good fight on Saturday. We have UFC pay-per-view this upcoming Saturday. Go over all that and more. Also, we got the participants in the World Series this year. And it's finally down to 2. So, go over all that and more. But again, thank you for joining me. If you're new, like and subscribe. Click on that bell. And for all your sports reviews and predictions, as well as pro wrestling reviews. So with that, let's get into the podcast, shall we? So, starting off Saturday, sorry if I put it in the thumbnail, but I didn't cover it. My bad. But Brian Ortega versus Korean Zombie, T-City versus Korean Zombie on Saturday was the main event, and boy, did it deliver. I mean, it was over a year in the making. Ortega hasn't fought since that war with Max Holloway 2 years ago, I believe. Yeah, 2 years. So it's been quite a layoff. And he's looked different, not just because of his hair, because he shaved his head, donated to charity, or donate his hair to charity, but he looks smooth in there against Korean Zombie. Absolutely the way that he needed to rebound after that war. Korean Zombie, he had some success, he had some good strikes, but overall it was just the pace, the fluidity, the mixing up of strikes for Brian Ortega. With leg kicks, butt kicks, nice combinations. And the second round was probably the most significant moment of the fight, was when Zombie, because his style is aggressive, he's coming forward, coming to knock your head off. Ortega ducked, and he landed a nice spin back elbow that caught Zombie on the chin, dropped him. It wasn't for long, but Zombie just kept pushing forward. But the overall striking of Ortega ultimately led him to victory, the unanimous decision. Zombie, despite a big cut on his eyebrow, still lays claim to that nickname, Korean Zombie. He kept coming forward, but it was Ortega's night, and he will get the next shot at Alexander Volkanovski at 145. Should be a very interesting fight because, Volkanovski, he beat Max the first fight, who, of course, went and had that war with Brian Ortega, but Volkanovski, he won the first fight with Max. You could have said it was close. The second fight, a bunch of people thought Max won, but they gave it to Volkanovski in the decision. Nonetheless, I think Volkanovski, he'll be taking what he learned from Max, because Max and Brian are both long and lanky, of the 145-pound division. Of course, Volkanovski is smaller and he has more power. He has the more one-punch knockout power. So that's key. But, of course, Ortega, he's a threat on the feet and as well as on the ground. So it'll be interesting to see how those two match up. Next, going from that, so like I said, it's now down to 2 participants left in the race for the World Series. Congrats to Tampa Bay Devil Rays and congrats to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Tampa Bay, they were up 3-1 and held on against the Astros. Have done a solid job. Obviously, they beat the Yankees and now they beat the Astros. Excuse me. But hats off to them. And for the Dodgers, they were down 3-1 against the very good Atlanta Braves team. But they kept fighting. Of course, people probably thought, uh-oh, the Dodgers are probably going to choke again. They came far, but they can't seal the deal. Now they're in the big dance once again against Tampa Bay, who some would say are a carbon copy of the Los Angeles Dodgers this season, just cheaper version. So it'll be interesting. If I had to guess, I would put I know history says that close but no cigar for the Dodgers. However, I still got to go with the Dodgers. Although it'd be a good story for Tampa Bay, I think the Dodgers win in probably 6. That's my prediction. Although it could go 7. You never know with these two teams. But hats off to both. Should be an interesting series. Game 1 is tonight. Be interesting to see. So next, I'll go over my thoughts on the games that happened this week, and then I'll go over my predictions for UFC 254, and then I'll go over my predictions for Week 7. So first off, so now going over Week 6 of the NFL season was a pretty, I would say, bizarre kind of week. I mean, there were some games that were head scratchers. Some were very good. It's just bizarre. So, again, I had a winning week. Thankfully, 8-6 on my predictions. So, getting into the Sunday games first. So, this was probably the game of the day. Houston at Tennessee. Overtime thriller in Nashville. I mean, I predicted the Titans to win. But boy, the Texans show a lot of fight. I mean, ever since they fired Bill O'Brien, J.J. Watt said, finally we can have fun again. And the last 2 games, they have shown fight and they have shown more life, not just the offense, but the defense. Credit, they gave up 42 points. But still, hats off to Houston. And Tennessee, boy, people talk about Derrick Henry and the day he had, but Ryan Tannehill has revitalized his career in Tennessee. I mean, in Miami, he was pretty decent quarterback. We're always near 500. 10-6 in 2016. Obviously, Tannehill went down. And then 2017, he obviously tore his ACL because they didn't fix that injury that was in his leg. 2018, he came back. They were pretty good. They were 7-6, and then they fell the rest of the way. Then last year, obviously 2-4, and then Tannehill comes in to win 7-3. They beat the they beat the Patriots. Then they beat the Ravens. Almost beat the Chiefs. But this start by the Titans is just remarkable, I would say. I think this team, looking back at the 2018 with Kerry Collins, CJ2K, Michael Griffin, Albert Hainsworth playing probably his best year. I think this team is probably a better team than that team, although it probably doesn't have as much star power as that team did. However, this offense I think is firing on more cylinders than that team was. So again, hats off to Tennessee. I was right about that one. I was wrong about the Browns Steelers game. I mean, Steelers won 38-7. This was now Baker. He obviously didn't come in 100%. He took a blow in last game against the Colts. He was questionable coming in, but he looked off. You had a feeling, okay, the Browns now 4-1. Yeah, they lost, but they're 4-2, and the Browns. This obviously ain't the same Browns team that has been the doormats of the NFL for the past 18 years. But hats off. Still, hats off to the Steelers. We've been waiting for them to win a blowout against a good team. Whereas, of course, they faced the Giants. It was pretty close. Where they beat the Broncos. It was pretty close. They beat, the Texans, but they had come from behind. Now, the Steelers 5-0, firing on good cylinders. 5-0 versus 5-0. Titans, Steelers next week. This game got icy towards the end. Baltimore defeated Philly 30-28. Now I was right about the outcome. Baltimore, it was like 17-0, and then it was 30-14. And he thought, okay. Then all of a sudden, Wentz driving down the Eagles. They just kept fighting. They kept fighting. They were undermanned on offense. And Wentz and the Eagles kept fighting. They scored. Touchdown, got 2-point conversion. Scored not touchdown, got we're laying up for 2-point conversion, but the play just looked off from the beginning. Looked like it may have been a read or option. Might have been play action. It just didn't materialize. and Baltimore hung on. I mean, Baltimore, it seems like they have kind of been napping. They haven't been the same team, and you sense a little bit of regression within Baltimore. Um, it's just odd. I was wrong by 1 point in this game. The Giants, they got their first win of the season against Washington, 20-19. This was a ugly game, kind of start. The Giants, they kind of had the lead for a while. Then the Washington came back in, and then, well, they had the lead, and then Kyle Allen, he just throws out the ball like it's a potato, and then it gets returned for a touchdown, which gives the Giants the lead. And then Washington, they came back, they got the touchdown, but Riverboat Ron, aggressive Ron Rivera, chose to stick him out to go for two, and go for the win, instead of going for overtime. Missed the 2-point conversion, and the Giants hung on for the first win of the season. This division is a mess, you can say, but hats off to the Giants. Good for Joe Judge. That defense is getting better, I would say, better every week. I mean, they have playmakers on that defense. I mean, they have a very solid front four. They have Big Cat Leonard Williams. They have Dexter Lawrence. They have, I believe it was Marcus Golden. They also have they have Jabril Peppers, Logan Ryan. They have playmakers. It just seems like it's starting to materialize. The offense just hasn't been matching the defense. Nonetheless, hats off to the Giants. Another game that I was wrong by, the Vikings versus Falcons. I mean, I had picked the Vikings to win by 10. But the Falcons got the first win of the season. You know, there's always that bump when head coach is fired in the middle of the season and the interim head coach is hired, and that puts a little bump in the team's performance, and that's the case. But at the same time, mental errors by the Vikings, it seems like they were lagging from the game against the Seahawks. A game that they should have won, but they let it still get to them, and they just weren't on top from the get-go. Cousins, he threw a pick to start the game. Obviously, Cook wasn't healthy. It's just Matt Ryan, hats off to him. Without the talk of, okay, the Arthur Blank doesn't believe him. Perhaps they move on him after last year. This is kind of a game he needed to have. But at the same time, it's just disappointing to see how the Vikings now, obviously, they've had O-line troubles, and their secondary is all new and young. Obviously, the injury to Danielle Hunter, but I mean, it's just they all get paid. Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Rick Spielman, and Mike Zimmer all get paid, and it's just disappointing to see how they've been. Because I mean, if you look at it, okay, they're 1-5. If they had beaten the Titans, which they lost by 1, and if they had beaten the Seahawks, which they lost by 1 as well, they would have been 3-3, 500. And then you think, okay, this team can make a run. But 2 games where they've just been on the wrong side of, it's just can't explain. I mean, now a game that was right of, thankfully, the Lions put a whipping on the Jaguars. I mean, kind of expected. The Lions, of course, have better talent. DeAndre Swift, they seem like they found something in him, as well as Kenny Galladay if he stays healthy. Man, their offense can click. And good for Adrian Peterson. He's still scoring touchdowns. If they can just pull it all together, then they can definitely make it ugly for teams and possibly make a run at that 7th seed. Who knows? The Colts survived adversity and they beat the Bengals 31-27. I mean, the Colts were sluggish to start. They fell down 21-0, but they bounced back. Philip Rivers, he needed it. I mean, credit. They shouldn't have been behind early, but with the talks of, okay, Philip's not performing well, could they move to Brissett or possibly Eason instead of Philip Rivers? Philip Rivers bowed back and led them to a comeback against the Bengals. I mean, Joe Burrow and the Bengals, they played as well as they could have. Randy Bullock, he missed a field goal late, where if he made that field goal and Joe Burrow, he didn't have to throw that pick, they could have won it with a field goal, but still, hats off to the Colts. I mean, and then the Bears, they beat the Panthers 23-16. It was an ugly game, but they dug down, and their defense, obviously they're not asking Nick Foles to do much. They're just having him do a few plays, and as long as he doesn't turn the football over, unfortunately he had a bonehead pick, but still, their defense hung on, and they moved to 5-1. The Bears are 5-1. As for the Panthers, I mean, they have played well the last few weeks without Christian McCaffrey. Behind Teddy Bridgewater, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, what a pickup he's been for them. But, I mean, their offense is so hung in there. Obviously, they're rebuilding, but they keep fighting. And I mean, I expect this team to get better down the stretch. They can still be a playoff team, but just careful on the Panthers. Next up, boy, was it a. Well, actually, the Dolphins, they shut out the Jets, the hapless Jets, 24-0. Fitz, he played well in parts. The run game just controlled the clock. Although there was only, I think, one or two third down conversions the whole game for the entire teams. But still, hats off to the Dolphins. They're now 3-3. They're gonna start 2-0 now. Next week against, or actually in 2 weeks. This is their bye week, so we gotta get them ready and start them versus the Rams. Should be interesting. They have a pretty easy schedule or manageable schedule the next 6 weeks, so it's totally possible they can make things interesting for themselves. Another game I was disappointed by. The Patriots lost to the Broncos 18-12. Ay, ay, ay. I mean, the Broncos, first off, hats off to Drew Lock. Good to see he's healthy. But I mean, the Broncos have been pretty much a mess this whole year. When in the offseason, I know friends that are Broncos fans, and I know media all clamored, hey, this could be a playoff team. If not challenge the Chiefs for the division. And they have just been a mess all year. Credit to, I mean, yes, Drew Lock has been out since the Steelers game, but still, it's just, and the Patriots, obviously, with the COVID violations by Cam and Gilmore, our defense did its job this game. We held them to 18 points, picked off Drew Lock twice. It's just, our offense needs to be more in sync. It felt like without the practice, they didn't have enough time to be in sync, and it just didn't. I mean, look at the end of the game. We had a chance to go up with a touchdown, and then on fourth down, I'm not sure if it was supposed to be a deep out or a corner route by N'Keal Harry, but he had separation. But Cam just threw it out in front, a little bit more out in front of N'Keal Harry, and it's just, next week we host San Francisco. I think maybe with another week of preparation, with more time, we can get under more continuity. But hats off to the Broncos. Then we get to a blowout. Oh, jeez. Brady vs. Rodgers 3. It was Tampa Bay hosting Green Bay Packers. This was a tale of two cities, pretty much. I mean, it's like, okay, Green Bay for the start was having their own. And then, I mean, they went up 10-0. It was kind of an ugly 10-0. I mean, at first it seemed like Green Bay was going to run away with it potentially. And then all of a sudden, Rodgers throws a pick six where he looked like he just didn't trust it enough and underthrew it to Jamel Dean. Next thing you know, it's 10-7. And then on another drive, Rodgers throws a ball into traffic. It gets bodied around and gets picked off by Mike Edwards. And next thing you know, it follows up with a touchdown by Ronald Jones, Rojo. And next thing you know, it's 14-10. And then the momentum just shifts. And throughout the game, their front seven was just harassing Aaron Rodgers. You can tell they were frustrating him. Running game by Rojo from Tampa Bay did solid. Brady, okay, he only threw 166 yards and 2 touchdowns, but still, it felt very well-rounded approach. Where Brady did what he needed to do, and then the running game did what it needed to do, as well as the defense. And then Gronk got his first touchdown as a Buccaneer. Looked like a fade and caught in the back of the end zone. It was a left-hand spike, not a right-hand spike. So it wasn't a real Gronk spike, but it's still a Gronk spike. We haven't seen it in a while. So good for Gronk. He said his arm was sore, so that's why he did a left-hand spike. Nonetheless, it was good to see it. Brady and Tampa Bay, they just rolled over these Packers. I mean, for a team that was 4-0, the Packers, this was concerning to say. I mean, they just checked out basically, it looked like, after the first couple drives. And it was just all Tampa Bay from there. And, I mean, what more could you say? Tampa Bay is finding their stride. And, I mean, yes, they lost to Chicago last week, but it was close and it was very sloppy. Now, in the game versus the Packers, they were very much clean with penalties and much more tightened up, and hats off to Buccaneers. So then we get to Sunday Night Football, and this game was also confusing. The San Francisco 49ers got back on track, and they won 24-16. I mean, now, Jimmy G, he still wasn't 100%. You could kind of tell. He wasn't 100%. He didn't really throw that much passes beyond the line of scrimmage, but he did what he needed to do. Raheem Mostert, he went out. Again, looks like he's going to be on IR again. But still, hats off to the Niners. I mean, the Rams is surprising because the 49ers, they just controlled the clock. They ran the ball down, did chunk plays, wasn't pretty, but they still got done. That defense, with all the injuries, did a really good job, I would say. Jason Verrett, I mean, it was a first rounder by the Chargers. And when he was with the Chargers and healthy, he was really good. But he's been banged up a lot over the years. And he hasn't been seen as much now that he's healthy, especially with the injury to Richard Sherman. Uh, they need a lockdown corner badly, and it looks like he's going to slide right in. He's not Richard Sherman, but he can help be the leader at that corner position that they so dire need. That defense, I mean, still without no Bosa, without Solomon Thomas, obviously Javon Kinlaw, uh, and others around that front four, Kerry Hyder, who they brought in. Hats off to them. They mostly confuse the Rams. Now, Jared Goff, he missed a few throws that he just seemed off. If you take the G out of Goff, that's what you get with Jared Goff's performance last night. I mean, some parts he looked good, but he just didn't look all there, and their timing was just not the same. I mean, he missed throws to Cooper Kupp, uh, which could have changed the game, and they made some decisions that were just but and that line of the 49ers as well held Aaron Donald mostly in check, which was a big plus in protecting Jimmy G and his ankle as he still recovers from that injury. And then last but not, so then we get to Monday, and then the Chiefs defeat the Bills 26-17 in a rainy Buffalo evening per se. I mean, the Chiefs, it was weird. I mean, their running game, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you don't often see that, or you don't mostly think of that when you think of the Chiefs. You think of the air raid, you think of the West Coast offense, them throwing it around. Of course, in a rainy day, that had to be limited, but the Chiefs gashed the Bills, and with the running game, which limited possessions obviously for the Bills, and ultimately won the game for the Chiefs. That defense confused Josh Allen. I mean, they hung around for the first part of the game, but over time, the Chiefs just opened it up, and the Bills had their chances, but they just didn't execute. And it's crazy how the Bills, they were 4-0 coming into last Tuesday or last week, and now they're 4-2, and things are looking different. Now, and then to end week 6, we had the Cardinals in Dallas taking on the Cowboys last night, and man, did the Cowboys look I mean, for the first part of the game, it was a stalemate. And you were like, okay, how is it going to go? I mean, the offense, first part, held the Cardinals' offense in check. And then, same for the Cardinals' defense. They held Dallas in check. Then, next thing you know, Zeke fumbles not once, but twice, which leads to 14 points. And then you're like, uh-oh, Dallas is losing it. And then next thing you know, a big pass from Kyler Murray to Christian Kirk, which becomes a long touchdown. And then next thing you know, it's 21-0. You're like, if you're a Dallas fan, you're like, what the hell? But, and then, okay, you thought, okay, at the end of the half, they were driving down. You thought, okay, they score a touchdown, and then they get the ball to start the second half. Score a touchdown, then another touchdown. You're only down by 7. So you thought, okay. So they had a nice drive going. And then Dalton throws a touchdown to a wide open Michael Gallup on the goal line. And Michael Gallup, he just timed it just a hair of a second too short and came off his fingertips, and he could not corral it, which ultimately led to a field goal. And then we're like, okay, that was a win, though, for Cardinals. Then the second half, they just felt like, okay, they tried to get back in it, but they just felt kind of uninspired considering the hole they dug themselves in. And Kyler Murray, he didn't do a lot, but he did what he had to do. It wasn't a pretty night, but he still did what he needed to do. And the Cardinals, the running game wasn't there to start, but once they got the lead, they were able to lean on it more, and the Cardinals just did what they needed to do. Now, they're 4-2 right now, the Cardinals, and I still believe they have the makings of being a playoff team. I think that if they can clean up, make it not too much on Kyler Murray. Kyler, like I said, he seemed a little off. If they can play complementary football, whereas the run game and the pass game, I believe they can play with anybody, and make it interesting for anybody. But hats off to the Cardinals, and geez, the Cowboys. At least they're still in first place of the NFC East at 2-4. So there's that. So going from my thought recap of Week 6, now I'll give my thoughts on predictions for UFC 254 Saturday. So I'm only going over the big fights, the last 3 fights for UFC 254, but interesting. Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje. Khabib 28-0. Can Gaethje be the 1 and 28-1? I'll give my thoughts on that in a sec. First off, we got Alexander Volkov versus Walt Harris. Both coming off losses. Walt Harris coming off that loss to Overeem. Volkov coming off his disappointing loss to Curtis Blaze. Both need to get on the winning track, need to get back on the winning track. Volkov, I'm going with Volkov, probably a second round TKO over Walt Harris. I just think that Volkov's a better fighter, and he's lanky, and will use those strikes. That's just my opinion. Next, we got a very good bout at 185. We got Robert the Reaper Whitaker coming off that win for Darren Till, who some are questioning because he had a layoff after that loss to Adesanya. Now he draws the Killer Gorilla Jared Cannonier. This is interesting. I mean, Whitaker, he looked good for the most part against Till. Cannonier, he's an athlete. I just think the power, because both these guys have power, Cannonier and Whitaker. I just think Cannonier is scary, and he seems to be on the roll of his career. So I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to go with Cannonier being Robert Whitaker. Now we get to the main event. Khabib versus Justin Gaethje. Holy smokes. Khabib is Khabib. We've seen him against Conor. We've seen him against Edson Barboza. We've seen him against Ally Quinta. We've seen him against Michael Johnson. The way he has dominated these guys. Now, how much of A, the loss of his father, and B, saying that he's only got 2 more fights in his career. He has this one and then another. How much could you say that Khabib is looking over Justin Gaethje just a little bit? That's a thought. Now, Justin Gaethje, we've seen him pick apart guys in violent fashion. Michael Johnson, his fight with Eddie Alvarez was good. The way he knocked out James Vick. But in his last few fights, against Barboza, and the way he just systematically picked apart Tony Ferguson and just outwilled El Kakui, kind of broke him, you could say, made his face look like a naked pizza, per se. A naked pizza with no toppings, except sauce. I just I had a feeling in before the Kukui fight, the Ferguson fight, I just had this feeling about Gaethje. I'm gonna write it. I think Gaethje is the 1-28-1. He's got that killer instinct, which I thought maybe Poirier could have had, and maybe he could be Khabib, but I think Gaethje takes it. I'm not sure how. I just have this feeling Gaethje over Khabib. And we have Ann New Saturday night. That's just how I feel. I just have this feeling. Next up, that was my thoughts for UFC 254. Now I'll give my predictions for week 7 of the NFL season. So, first off, we got Thursday Night Football back. The Giants go to Philly to play the Eagles. Now, obviously, the question is who is going to be healthy for the Eagles? I mean, no Miles Sanders, no Zach Ertz. I mean, just injuries galore for the Eagles. Carson Wentz is still there. Carson Wentz, I mean, to start the season, he and the Eagles was frustrating me. But over the last few weeks, I've been gaining trust back in the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, as far as the Giants go, they got their first win on Sunday. They seem, yes, but prior to that, they were winless, but they didn't feel like a real winless team. They felt like they were an improving football team. Their defense has gotten better. They have playmakers, like I said, on that defense. Daniel Jones, if he doesn't make any bonehead mistakes, they have some okay wide receivers. But, okay, Philly, you frustrated me. Now I believe in you again. So, I'm going to go with Philly to win 24-20 over the Giants. Next, we move to Sunday football. This is interesting. 5-0 versus 5-0. The Pittsburgh Steelers going to Nashville to play the Tennessee Titans. Now, a big injury on both sides. We got Devin Bush out for a year with torn ACL. Takes out speed on that defense. And we got Terrell Wan out for the year with torn ACL. I still expect a bunch of points to be scored in this game. I had scored prior to Terrell Wan and Devin Bush's injury, so take off a few points. However, I still think Tennessee, they have it all going. I just think now Pittsburgh as well, but I just think Tennessee, especially in Tennessee with fans there, I'm going with Tennessee 30-28. Wasn't as high scoring as I originally predicted, but key injuries made me a little rethink. Next up, we got Dallas going to Washington. Both coming off losses. Washington, you could say, should have won against the Giants. Dallas looked deplorable against the Cardinals. With all the injuries, Zach Martin is now in concussion protocol. That O-line is I just think that front seven of Washington, Chase Young, Ryan Kerrigan, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, they're going to feast Montez Sweat on that backup O-line of the Cowboys, and they'll win. It'll be ugly, but 21-17, Washington. I don't want to talk about this game for long because I just don't. So I'm going to say it really quick. Bills win over Jets 30-14. That's all. I'm sorry if you're a Jets fan, but yeah. Bills will get back on track. That's all I'll say. Next up, another interesting game. The Saints host the Panthers. The Panthers coming off that close loss to the Bears. The Saints coming off their bye week after that shootout against Justin Herbert and the Chargers. I think they'll be replenished. Michael Thomas, I think, will be back. Hopefully straight up, and they win 29-21. Next up, we got Green Bay going to Houston. Now, this has the smell of a trap game for Green Bay. I mean, Houston, yes, they got Deshaun Watson, and they're playing like a different team. However, they still only have one win. And Green Bay, it just looked odd. I mean, they're probably coming off that game against Tampa Bay thinking, okay, we can beat the Texans. But I'm actually going with Houston to upset Green Bay 28-26. Excuse me. I just think it just has the making of a trap game for Green Bay. Next up, we got the second of the rivalry. Cleveland going to Cincinnati. Now, it was a close scoring game last time. Yes, Cleveland looked bad against Pittsburgh, but this is a game. I like Joe Burrow, but I think Cleveland, Baker, with another week of rest, will be healthier, and all this talk of, okay, he's a problem, they'll win, and they'll be like, okay, they're back to where they need to be. Cleveland will win 27-21 and go up to 5-2, and they'll all respect Cleveland again. Next up, we got the Lions going to Atlanta to play the Falcons. This is the battle of the two teams that I had myself scratching my head about this offseason. The Lions and the Falcons. Now, the Falcons got the first win. with Raheem Morris as interim head coach. But the Falcons, I just don't know what to think about them. I just don't. It's just. Okay, they beat the Vikings, but the Vikings have been so and so. I just think I have more trust in the Lions to win 28-20. And the Lions, they will be at 500. Interesting. Next up, a highly anticipated battle in the desert. Seattle going to Arizona. 1,200 fans to be in attendance for the Cardinals. The Cardinals running high over that blowout in Dallas. I think they'll keep it close, but Russell Wilson off a bye week. I just think they edge it out 30-26 to get to 6-0. Cardinals, they may drop to 4-3, but still going down. Next up, we got the Chargers hosting the Jags. Justin Herbert over Gardner Minshew, 24-17. Not much to say. The Chargers just have the better team, I think. And yeah. Now, I've thought about this. The 49ers versus the Patriots. Now, the 49ers got back on track Sunday night against the Rams. Jimmy G should be healthy again. However, I think the Patriots will be a little more pissed because in a way they should have won. At least that's what they'll probably think. And I think this will be an ugly game. So I'm going to go with the Patriots to win. Get back to 500. 17-16 over San Fran. Next up, the Chiefs go at Denver to play the Broncos. Drew Lock, second game back. However, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. Le'Veon Bell should make his debut for Chiefs. 28-17. Broncos kind of hang around, but the Chiefs pull away late. Then Sunday Night Football. Tampa Bay going to Vegas to play the Raiders, who got that big win over the Chiefs in Arrowhead. This is interesting because both, I think, played probably their best games of the year in their last games. I just think I have more trust in Tampa Bay than I do Vegas. They're almost there, but they're just a little outmatched. I'm going with 31-24 Tampa Bay over Raiders. Then to end the week, we got Chicago 5-1 Bears going to LA to take on the 4-2 Rams. Yes, the Bears won ugly against the Panthers. However, I just think that the Rams, I think, will be better this week or next week. However, I think the Bears. Well, the funny thing, Nick Foles, the last 2 times he has faced the Rams, 2017, yes, he picked up the last half of the game against the Rams, but he won that game, and then in 2018, when Nick Foles came in for Carson Wentz, they beat the Rams in a game they needed to have. And so the last 2 times he's been undefeated. This time, I think he beats the Rams again, 24-20. All right, so that was all I had for the podcast today. Bunch to go over, but thank you all for joining me. Like I said, if you're new, like and subscribe. Click that bell for all notifications on your previews, predictions, whatever you want, reviews. Again, I'm here. Thank you all for joining me. I'm Mitchell True and Love. See you all on Thursday for your AEW Dynamite review.